ba, your, Whew. I mean, let me give you, of course, did you hear Phil scream in the courtroom? I don't, and of course, it was emotional for all of us. Excuse me. Okay, I'm breathing. First of all, maraming salamat. Thank you for being here, and I have to say, it's who to thank. Siguro naman po, yung sa mga trolls ng Rappler at doon sa mga naniniwala sa mga kasinungalingan tungkol sa Rappler, napaniwalaan na po namin na hindi tax evader ang Rappler. Okay? Sorry, napatunayan po namin na na hindi tax evader ang Rappler. Yun nga lang po, it took 4 years and 2 months. 4 years and 2 months. We came to court. We believed in the court. Despite everything that was happening. And I don't know if you remember, but about 6 months before these charges, 4 charges were filed against us, we received a top corporate taxpayer award from the Philippines, right? So, medyo nabaliktad po yung mundo. But, today, facts win. Truth wins. Justice wins. Medyo emotional nga lang po. These charges, as you know, were politically motivated. They were incredible to us. A brazen abuse of power and meant to stop journalists from doing their jobs. But, give me 2 seconds. These cases are where capital markets, where rule of law, where press freedom meet, right? So, this acquittal, kahit na medyo matagal po, is not just for Rappler. It is for every Filipino who has ever been unjustly accused. Oh, gosh. It is also a ray of light, hope. Again, not just for us, but if you guys remember, I just last Sunday visited Laila de Lima. In February, she will begin her 7th year in prison. 7th year yon sa February kay Laila de Lima, right? And then, of course, don't forget we have a journalist who's been in prison, Frenchie May Cumpio. She begins her 4th year in prison this February as well. So, this is hope. This is hope. I had a really good feeling about today, not only because there wasn't one shred of evidence to support these charges, not one. Kasi hindi naman po talaga dealer in securities ang Rappler, right? We are a news organization. But also because of the way the Court of Tax Appeals conducted the hearings. I testified here. I actually, at some point, felt sorry for the prosecution because they couldn't answer some of the questions that the justices themselves posed. So I had a good feeling coming in today. But, of course, it's been so long that we've lived in the upside down that I was also prepared for a conviction. And we would have kept fighting. But, my God, what a release. So let me say thank you. Thank you to all of you who are here, to the Court of Tax Appeals for giving us justice. Our shareholders, every news organization needs their shareholders to stand by them when they're attacked. So thank you to our shareholders and our partners who stood up for the values that keep a democracy vibrant. And frankly, for every Filipino who believes in facts, in truth, in justice, right? In justice. So, yun lang po. Madami pa po tayong dapat gawin. Can I let Francis, who's the former president of the, can I ask him to make a statement also, please? And then we can take questions. Eric?
Nagpapasalamat kami sa korte, no? Kami sa Accra Law, especially our tax team headed by Eric, had no doubt from the start, no, that this day will come, the day of acquittal. No? You know, in our last meeting, I told Maria and the team, in a criminal case, what is needed is proof beyond reasonable doubt. Okay? Dahil criminal case ito, where what is at stake is liberty. Okay? And I told them that keep the faith. Because in my heart, in our heart, in Accra Law, we knew that acquittal would come. And especially thank the court for demonstrating the independence of the judiciary. Everybody knows how these cases came about. And we feel, no, that even that SEC case where the very life of Rappler has been cancelled, no, or put to death, no, at the end of the day, truth and justice will prevail. Especially that these cases have implications not only on the freedom of the press, but on business in general. Okay? We do need investments here in the country to help the country emerge from the pandemic. Okay? And a contrary decision today would have really had negative implications not only on the freedom of the press, but on the economy. Kaya kami nagpapasalamat sa justices, sa Court of Tax Appeals, the institution, and above all, to God, who has been guiding us all throughout. Divine justice has been done, and we hope that we will see divine justice prevail at the end of the day, up to the Supreme Court. Maraming salamat. Ano? Well, we haven't read the decision because what was read was only the dispositive portion. I was telling Maria and Glenda a while ago that I would love to read the decision because I'm sure there are implications on the other cases. For example, the nature of the PDRs. No? You know, with due respect to the prosecution, their theory of the case fails to distinguish between investment and sale of stock in trade. Their theory of the case fails to distinguish between investors and customers. Okay? And the prosecution's theory of the case, sorry for being technical, no? Fails to distinguish between capital raising activities and purchase and sale of securities. So, I hope
Francis o si Maria Ressa katabi ko ngayon. Si Francis muna. Go ahead.
So, pati sa tax case, malaking implications ito sa taxpayers natin. And I really want to thank the tax team of Accra Law for coming up with the strong defenses, which I personally felt reading their documents was ironclad insofar as obtaining acquittal of Maria Ressa and RHC. Eric may want to say something. Ano yun? I'm Attorney Francis Lim, Special Legal Counsel of Accra Law. I retired from the firm, but I continue to have an oversight of this case. Basic in our constitutional system is the proscription or prohibition against double jeopardy. I know that the prosecution team manifested a while ago that they're still studying this case. But I'm sure that at the end of the day, if they study their cases and be independent, they will not appeal acquittal because of that constitutional prohibition. They may appeal the judgment for civil liability. But I think what is clear here for me, as far as I recall from my law school days, the civil liability arises from criminal liability. And therefore, kung walang criminal liability, especially so when the court has expressly said that there was no factual and legal basis for this case, we also think that there will be no civil liability at the end of the day.
So what does it mean for the other case pending in the RTC, which is also the tax?
Dapat I don't want to preempt the RTC, but they should take guidance from this court. I'm not saying that this court decision is binding on them, but it should provide some enlightenment to the RTC of Pasig for that other tax case.
Can I also ask Eric Recalde and Jackie to actually...
Here's the prosecution team.
Eric Recalde, ACRA.
Okay, the ACRA law, right from the start, we said that these charges have no basis. Even the theory, it's unusual. So that's why we took it upon ourselves to explain to the court, as mentioned by Francis Lim, that mere capital raising activity will not make one, a holding company at that, to be a dealer in securities. Rappler undertook this capital raising activity precisely for expansion, to have a vibrant press. And this also teaches us, this case, that taxation can never be used by the government to muscle press freedom. Thank you. No. As mentioned, the case is final, and that has been emphasized by the court, notwithstanding the manifestation by the prosecution, but that relates only to the civil liability. But the court also clarified that there's also no civil liability. Prosecution failed to establish factual basis even for an assessment. No. It's simply the promulgation, the dispositive portion, but it's clear there that there will be no civil liability because prosecution failed to establish the factual basis. And mind you, in a criminal case, it should be established clearly when both civil and factual, the factual basis of the assessment. Ordinarily, that should lead and at least should have considered by the prosecution before even filing these cases. There's a process, and we respected the court. The prosecution was given the opportunity, but right from the start, we already filed the appropriate motion to dismiss the charges, and even upon following the presentation of evidence by the prosecution, we filed the demurred evidence, but the court decided to hear our case, and as you can see in the decision, eventually they feel that there's really no basis. The cases should be dismissed right away.
Okay. In layman's terms, let's assume that you form a corporation, and you may tax yan. Normally, yung par value niyan, 10 pesos, 1 peso, 100. You succeeded in letting the company grow. Okay? Then, because you succeeded, a lot of investors or a number of investors are interested to invest in your company. So what you do is to raise capital in order to enable you to expand your business. Then, you issue new shares. Diba? Pupunta ka sa SEC, mag-i-increase ka ng capital stock, pagkatapos mag-IPO ka. Yung IPO price mo is, let's say, 10 pesos from 1 peso. Income tax ba yon? You're just raising capital. Ginagawa yun ng ibang list companies, di ba? Yun, that's what I meant when may repercussions yan sa business. Kung na-convict si Maria dito, ang Rappler dito, wow, anong gagawin ng business natin? Bakit kami mag-IPO, magkapa-public offering, matatax lang kami. Di ba? And ang effect niyan, the adverse effect on the economy. So, wala tayo sanang mga companies like PLDT, San Miguel, ganun. kung wala yung capital raising activities, yung internally generated funds ng company are more often than not sufficient for capital expansion, di ba, for business expansion. So you have to go out either by way of private placement, public offering to raise capital. Pag ginawa mong taxable yan, wala na. You may be limited to your internally generated fund, which by their nature are limited. No? May limit yan eh. And you cannot also share your success with other investors, di ba? Yeah, everyone. I was the president of this tax exchange, and we at this tax encourage private companies, family-owned companies, to go out to the market to raise capital so that they can expand this business. And at the end of the day, it's the economy, it's our poor people through job creation that will benefit. Imagine mo yan kung na-convict si Maria dito, yung repercussions.
So walang batayan, attorney, no? Talagang kayo na-absolve.
Gayang sinabi ni Attorney Recalde, and nandito si Jackie, the trial team, talagang from the start, and with due respect to the previous administration, wala talagang batayan, walang base yung kaso, mga kaso dahil kay Rappler at kay Maria Ressa.
Maria, can I ask a question?
Walang batayan, kaya hindi nasura. Tatlo yun eh. Matibay, attorney, wala talagang batayan.
Under the current administration,
Apat.
we did four cases.
Attorney, nagtingin dito si DC.
It's hard to say, hope is there now, and this is an acquittal, so thank God. I mean, I think it's not a coincidence that in 2018, 14 investigations were opened against Rappler after President Duterte called us, basically called us out in his State of the Nation address. And we weren't the first news group, right? First he attacked Inquirer, then ABS-CBN, then Rappler. A week after he did that, we got our first subpoena. Right? And then they just kept coming. In less than 2 years, I had 10 arrest warrants. I had to keep posting bail to keep doing our jobs. Hope. That's what it provides. And, a quick thing is, I had a hard time understanding it myself because essentially it's the difference between an investment versus if you already have stocks in GMA, for example, right? You had stocks and you wanted to resell them. So they're not unissued shares. It's reselling is the part that gets value-added tax, that gets sales tax. Hindi naman, this was not a reselling of stocks. This was an investment. And that was very, very clear in all the documents presented in court. So that very simple thing. 4 years and 2 months, folks.
Are you looking for investor? Acquitted na kayo?
We were always very careful about who we got as investors because we value our independence. We've all worked for different groups, and journalist independence, you have to have. If you're a journalist running a news organization, what do you put first? Money or editorial freedom? We try to marry both because obviously we wouldn't be able to keep going if we didn't have money for payroll. But at the same time, if you're overly there, if you allow a normal businessman to run a news organization, then sometimes you make decisions that are bad for journalism and ultimately bad for the public we serve. First, I heard my colleague scream in the background. Fel, who's our CFO, and Glenda Gloria, who has been with me, who came in through, came to every time I got arrested, right? Justice. It was a long time coming.
Anong mensahe nyo kay Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte?
It's never personal. It's nothing against him, nothing for him, right? I expect institutions to function. I expect the people we elect to strengthen the institutions, because if they gut the institutions, it is bad not only for Filipinos, but for their children, for the future generations of Filipinos. We need independent media that will hold power to account. Kung sino man siya.
Masasabi nyo bang ganti po ito? Masasabi nyo ganti po ito?
Sorry again, Barnaby. We keep going. I mean, Barnaby, you know, you guys have seen so many of your faces every time we go to court, diba? And today, so you know, in the cyber libel case, June 15th, 2020, look, I remember each date. I was first arrested February 13th, 2019. On June 15th, 2020, I wrote this in my book. I packed a bag. I put it in the car because I wasn't sure whether I would be granted bail. You prepare for the worst case scenario. And you keep going. When it's the best case scenario, actually, strangely, hindi naman ako umiyak pagka negative, di ba? It's when it's positive na medyo nakakaiyak. And dapat naman positive talaga kasi dapat may rule of law.
Ma'am, sa tingin nyo ba ginamit doon yung Pangulong Duterte ganti ito para gamitin BIR?
I think sinabi na po ni Attorney Francis that politically motivated yung charges. We weren't the only news organization attacked. But we continue to have faith in our justice system, that the men and women who are there will stand up to political pressure. Anyone else? And then we'll go to Barnaby, because Barnaby's asked you. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, that has always been our issue with the SEC, with due respect to my friends here. No? The SEC itself, through the years, has recognized PDRs as independent or different from shares of stock. Yet they came out with that decision. That's why we have appealed to the Court of Appeals, where the case is still pending. And God forbid, if we don't get the SEC decision reversed, we will go up to the Supreme Court. Because after all, offhand, yes, no? But as I said a while ago, the team still have to read the decision and come out with arguments on the basis of that decision. Because for all we know, the Court of Appeals appreciated the true nature of PDRs as opposed to shares of stock. That's what I'm hoping to see from the decision.
One last statement before we let you guys go and write, right? I think my appeal is now to every Filipino, to every journalist, to every lawmaker, that democracy is built second by every one of us, to the lawmakers who compromise, to journalists who may duck. It's always a choice for all of us. To Filipinos who are struggling to put food on the table. Kailangan po sama-sama tayo to protect the democracy that will inevitably protect us. Yun lang po. Thank you so very, very, very much. Salamat na marami. Jackie Tan.
Tan.
Jackie Chan na rin pwede. Magaling siya.